Welcome to Movies That Matter, the podcast about recent films going above and beyond the call of box office returns to boldly explore a social issue affecting people's lives. I'm Stacy Moore.
I'm Nicole Finari.
And this week we're going to overanalyze The Legend of Tarzan, which I'm very excited about.
I can't imagine why.
I just have been looking forward to talking about this with you.
Great.
Since I saw it.
Excellent.
Okay. Basic premise, it has been, so based on the novels of Edgar Rice Burroughs, first of all, which I think was back in like the 19-teens or something like that. The movie is based on those novels, and we start off with it being several years since the man once known as Tarzan, played by Alexander Skarsgård, left the jungles of Africa behind for a gentrified life as John Clayton III, or Lord Greystoke, with his beloved wife Jane, played by Margot Robbie, at his side. And then he has been invited back to the Belgian Congo to serve as a trade emissary of Parliament, unaware that he is a pawn in a deadly convergence of greed and revenge, masterminded by the Belgian captain Leon Rum, or Christoph Waltz, a.k.a. my favorite thing that ever happened, and the best part of this movie.
Far away.
Yeah. Also starring Samuel L. Jackson, and I looked this up so I'd pronounce it correctly, Djimon Hounsou, who was also, he's good in everything.
Yeah.
In fact, the one point in the movie where I got surprisingly emotional was when he was giving his big line of the movie, and I thought, well, I didn't expect to actually feel anything, and that was like an hour and a half in, and I had checked out completely, and then he said something, and I just I cracked inside. Anyway, so why don't we let's just get into it. What did you think?
Oh, I hated it.
Okay, right.
I would have laughed after 20 minutes.
Sure, if it weren't for the podcast.
Yes,
right?
It was so boring. It was just really boring. I mean, for an action movie, so boring.
It took like 40 minutes to even get started.
Yeah, and so one of my biggest complaints, again, this is a movie podcast. I'll get the cinema stuff out of the way. So from the last podcast, I don't appreciate CGI, and there was way too much of this.
I thought of you a lot.
It was not credible. The interactions with the animals look fakey fake.
Sure.
The Tarzan swinging from the ropes, this is my complaint about Spider-Man. Don't make another Spider-Man movie until you can make that look realistic.
Right.
Because it still doesn't. But first and foremost, the most hackneyed, trite cinematography, shot for shot, was the most generic. Mm-hmm. Oh, he is lying in a sickbed, and there's a woman coming in, and she's fuzzy, and she's just a shadow, and there's the mandatory scene of the savannah with the train cutting across, shot for shot. I was this is the most uninspired cinematography I think I've ever seen in a movie.
And yet, as generic as that was, the editing was not even to a generic level. The editing was so bad.
Yeah.
I felt like I could never even tell. There was no sort of cohesive, sequence of the shots, connecting to each other. Someone would be falling, but then they would be up a tree, but then they'd be on the ground, and then someone would be on top of them, and you wouldn't see where they'd fallen or whatever.
Yeah.
It was...
Tarzan's superpower is his ability to fall. That dude falls better than anybody else could possibly fall. He, falls into things very easily and catches things. It's amazing. Yeah, the editing was crap. The cinematography was just trite. I just was this is so boring.
Right. Couldn't decide what it was.
It didn't... Yeah, so...
was it a fun summer action flick where we're in the jungle? And, I love a shot of, the African savannah with the kind of overlay of tribal chanting as much as the next person. Take me there. I'm ready to go. But then to try to lay onto that this searing critique of colonial powers exploiting sub-equatorial nations, it's just this really heavy kind of material. Just they couldn't carry it.
they couldn't carry it. They couldn't carry the fantasy elements. And I'm not kidding you. I literally laughed out loud when he did the Tarzan yell.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I was just so, like, it was so funny. Like, they didn't know how to strike the tone between the sort of fantastical, campy elements of Tarzan and the story. Like, they didn't mix tone well. It just didn't come off.
Sure. Oh, and there were so many, like, condescending girl power lines. Like, you know, just lots of patronizing, wow, what a woman, and, like, comments about Margot Robbie's character, about Jane, or when she says, like, oh, you want me to scream like a damsel? And it's like, we get it, girl power, this isn't 2002. You know what I mean? We're a little farther, hopefully, than that point. We're like, this is post-Hunger Games era. You know, like, you don't have to actually point out that she's a girl and not, like, drooling and tripping over herself.
Yeah, they definitely tried to make like Jane plucky,
right?
While announcing how plucky she was,
exactly,
at every moment, to totally destroy that impression. You know, the sort of show don't tell.
Absolutely.
Although I did like, in the one part that they didn't oversell it was, I thought they did a good job with her, at least. You know, her longing to go back to Africa, feeling like it was home, being in that community and speaking the language, and definitely feeling that sibling camaraderie with her, for lack of a better word, brother who's captured and on the boat with her and being used as a pawn. Like, I thought their connection was very believable.
Sure.
And I did appreciate that aspect.
That was a nice element. Yeah, I agree. I found that to be emotionally genuine. So there's a couple of things, at least for the sake of our purposes here.
Yes.
We've got a couple of things going on. I originally was ready for the kind of sexualization of the male image, otherwise known as beefcake.
Yes.
Element.
Beefcake element.
Exactly. Which is why I wanted to see it and discuss it. You know, there's been a lot more, you know, films where men are sexualized. I won't say objectified because I feel like there's a difference.
That's interesting. What's the difference?
Sure. Okay. So I guess an example would be... Oh, so there's a Tumblr feed out, and I forget what it's called, but it's basically movie posters featuring women's, like, basically decapitated bodies. So they don't have, you know, they have, like, the body is the focus of the image of the poster, but you don't see their face, or just their head is cut off. And it's very, very, like, once I was sensitized to it, I started noticing it, like, everywhere. Like, movie posters, it was just a woman's, like, neck down, you know, voluptuous or scantily clad or whatever body. And you can see it apparently on, like, book covers too sometimes. So that's an example of a woman being... So objectification being when a human is reduced to a thing, right? Like, either a body part, as in, like, Sir Mix-a-Lot, you know, I like big butts, or in those movie posters or whatever. So it's no longer a person. It's a piece, right? A woman can be sexualized... Say in, I don't know, a movie like, I don't know, Moulin Rouge, where, you know, they're very sexualized in like, their work and whatnot.
Well, picking the least sexual woman ever, but that's a topic for another time.
The what?
Well, picking the least sexual woman ever. Like, Nicole Kidman is, like, the epitome of, like, coldness. Like, she's so unsexy, but whatever.
Fair enough. So, yeah, but they're not being objectified, right? They're characters, they're people. Okay. So, I feel like in a lot of these movies, the men are not being reduced to a thing. Like, they're just a character who is being, you know, sexual in, like, the way he's presented or acting or whatever. So, what do we feel like? Was Tarzan objectified or sexualized in this film? Was it a respectable,
I mean,
kind of portrayal of the male body, the male form?
I definitely, I'm with you. I think he was sexualized. I think... but, like, not enough.
I I agree. I was expecting to like all the posters and
like it was not steamy at all.
No, there was
no steam.
A couple of like sexual scenes.
There were some romantic scenes.
Sure. Well, there's one where she's like, but again, it was tell, don't show, wasn't it? She's like basically announcing we're about to have sex, and then they just kind of cut away, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I was expecting a lot more torso.
Yeah,
than I got.
Oh, and there was one shot from behind, which was a problem. Spoiler alert: Alexander Skarsgård has no butt.
Oh.
I was like,
really?
Oh yeah. There was only one shot. I was like, oh, I get why there's only one shot. Like, he really doesn't have an ass.
Oh, that's a shame.
It is sad.
Apparently, David Yates, the director, was refused to let Tarzan have a loincloth in this movie, even though Alexander Skarsgård, like, begged for it.
He would. Good for him.
Right? God love him, right?
Yeah.
God bless him. But, and David Yates was like, no, it doesn't fit the plot, because he's coming from England, so he'd have pants. But now I'm wondering if he was just if he was sugarcoating it, and really it's because he had no ass.
Maybe.
Oh.
Too bad.
Oh, well, I'm sure he's okay. He's
having
fine.
said that, like, and I'm not going to try to reproduce his name of the other actor who was the chief. Like,
sure,
he was looking good.
Oh, sure, he's a specimen.
Yeah, he really
that
is.
guy is a specimen.
Yeah, he. I'm not into blondes, so like Alexander Skarsgård just really doesn't do anything for me.
Not
but
your
I
thing.
was like, you could show more of that. Like,
let me.
He was kind of loinclothy, and I'm totally down with that as well.
He doesn't age.
Oh,
the guy doesn't age. He's looked the same since Amistad.
He's just male beauty personified. So
Absolutely.
You could have thrown some homoerotic stuff in there and I would have been fine with that, and it didn't happen. So no, I would say the steaminess factor was extremely
very low for a
which
Tarzan
is disappointing.
Movie. Mm-hmm. I agree. So it definitely has been a trend in recent years. More men have been sexualized in films, and God love The Economist. This is why I love The Economist.
We are the best kind of people.
What?
We are the best kind of people.
Oh, yeah. They went ahead and researched this and quantified it.
Okay.
So, basically, yes, more men have been either wearing sexualized attire or in some degree of nudity. Like, the percentage is up since 2007. From, like, I don't know, let's see, according to the graph, 20% to, like, 30%. Now, this very small incremental rise, right? Oh, no, that was women. Okay, so women went from 20 to 30%. Men went from 5 to 10.
Woohoo!
So 5 to 10%. That's nothing, right?
Yeah.
But it's a slight increase, which I credit the Twilight franchise with that, P.S. But at the same time, there are apparently actors that don't care for it. Like, even that small increase is just, like, upsetting to them. So, for instance, Henry Cavill of the Superman movies, right, stated that it represents a double standard.
Excuse me?
Oh, yeah.
I beg your pardon.
Yeah. Just let that simmer. I was furious. I was like, are you serious? Are you serious with me right now? Double standard. To treat the genders the same?
Yeah, equally badly. Which isn't what we should be aiming for, but...
Well, I disagree. I think we should be sexualizing everyone.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Right, I think again, like, I think it's okay. You know, it's wrong to objectify, but I think there's nothing wrong with looking at a sexy person. And
actually, no, you're right. If you make that line between objectification and sexualization, I'll agree with you. Like,
sure,
I enjoy a good-looking guy as much as the next guy enjoys a good-looking girl.
Absolutely, you know, and shout outs to our LGBT, you know, listeners as well. Like, I'm sure they're in with us. You know, like, everybody loves looking at a sexy person.
Fair enough. I enjoy looking at a good-looking girl as well.
There you go. Exactly. So I'm all about, like, the, you know, what would it be? I guess the equality, like the gender parity.
I will say this, for the sexualization, the only thing that I still do have a problem with is the unrealistic body image issue that is also hitting men as well as women. Like,
sure.
I mean, I have heard from guys, I've never attempted such a thing myself. So it's just, it's not physically possible for every guy to get a body like Alexander Skarsgård. Like, some guys just don't have the genetics to have a six-pack in that way.
Sure.
And so, just making everybody feel terrible about their bodies is not...
Yeah, that's not good.
No. But, disappointingly, like, unsexy.
I don't know. I think there should be more of it. Like, according to The Economist research, even with the 5% increase in, I guess, male sexiness, male lead roles still outnumber female lead roles 4-1. Which is... So it's... Again...
There was one chick in this entire movie. Jane.
Oh, right. Exactly. That's a great example. Tarzan.
Like, the chief whose son got killed could have been a woman.
There you go. Absolutely.
It could have been a woman. It wasn't a woman. Like
why not?
It was just a bunch of men.
Sure.
Everybody was a man. The emissary could have been a woman. Like...
Yeah, totally. So, when a male is sexualized in a movie, he's not going to, he doesn't risk being paid less because he's sexy or objectified. He doesn't risk, like, not getting a lead role in the next movie, like women do.
Yeah.
And so it's not the same.
No.
It's just, it's not even close. No, anyway, I was as perturbed as you were to hear that.
So I think we should deal with the big sort of elephant in the room in the making of this movie, which is white savior stories, right?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is essentially a white savior story in the sense that the books were written a long time ago. It gets a free pass, but in terms of the fact that someone still decided to make this movie here in 2016, I'm going to go with no.
Right. And under the guise of being progressive.
Yeah, and they did a bunch of things to try to make it progressive, but it's still a white savior story, and I still say no. I have no need for a white savior story in my life whatsoever. I kept reading the same 2 chapters of The Help over and over and over again and put it down.
Sure.
And wouldn't see the movie because I'm like, this is a white savior story. Like, let black people be the heroes of their own tale. Like, they are absolutely the heroes of their own tale in history and in life. We don't need to keep making these fictional accounts where it's a white person who helps them out of their trouble. Like, it didn't happen that way. There's no reason for it.
Well, you know why? Is because white people won't see the movie otherwise.
So then they don't see the movie. Make a different movie. Make a movie about white people saving white people then.
Sure. Right. Yeah. No, I have this very distinct... I think The Help is a great example. Skeeter serves no purpose.
None.
In that book. Another great example is Glory, which, I mean, I love that movie. Don't get me wrong. That's in my top 5, or at least top 10. But I remember watching it when I was young, for the first time when I was, 14 or something, and thinking I was going to be seeing a movie starring Denzel Washington and Morgan Freeman about, like, the first, black regiment in the United States and all of this. And, imagine my surprise when 20 minutes into the movie, I'm still with Matthew Broderick and thinking, like, wait, I thought this was about a black regiment. Why are we, following this, white, I guess, captain or officer anyway? And, and I think it's because, like, humans in general, I think, have trouble empathizing with someone who doesn't either look like them or come from the same circumstances. So the white savior character acts, or at least white witness, acts as, like, the inn, as, like, a chaperone, as an ambassador to, like, help the white people come in and experience the story through them. And it's not necessary. It's like, just try harder to relate to someone who doesn't look like you.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely A. And B, the witness thing could still be a function, right? Like, I still probably wouldn't love that it was told from that angle. But so you had Samuel L. Jackson in this movie as the kind of attempt to be progressive. to no effect or avail. Like, what was his point or purpose in this whole thing? It made no sense. Like, it added nothing. And so you could have made that character white, right? Like, you could have made him as, like, look at all this crazy stuff that's happening. Have the witness be white and the story be about black people. But
sure.
I mean, again, it's Tarzan. They chose to make a movie about Tarzan, and you cannot escape the fact that the whole Legend of Tarzan is a white savior story.
Sure.
And I don't think there's good reason to tell that story anymore. Let Tarzan die.
Sure.
I just don't.
Right.
And, and then you had, so spoiler alert, they're on the Jane and her brother, whose character name I don't remember, get captured. He's, like, caged up. And then he, like, magically escapes from the cage with no explanation as to how he gets out of this cage.
Oh, I thought she unlocked him.
She was tied up. How did she unlock him?
Fair enough.
So,
and then the movie did, again, like I said, the sequence of...
events. And I'm like, oh, great, a magical Negro story? That's all we needed on top of our white savior story. Like, his, like, African voodoo gets him out of it.
Sure.
I was like, seriously, guys? Like, come on now.
Yeah.
So,
no, I just feel, again, I think that was a result of the just shoddy storytelling as far as, like, there was one scene where, Samuel L. Jackson just starts shooting at a ship with, like, an automatic weapon, like a rudimentary automatic machine gun, and just shoots everyone on the boat. They all, like, go diving off into the water. And then in the next cut, the boat is half sunk with no explanation as to why. Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you shoddy editing and storytelling because none of this hung together at all. Oh. The whole idea of the chief. So the only scene in the movie I liked was the opening scene where a whole bunch of white people got slaughtered, and I was like, yeah! Kill all those white people. Like, this seems like a good idea.
I loved all Christoph Waltz's scenes of strangling people to death with a rosary.
Yeah.
It's like, way to beat us over the head with that symbolism.
Yeah. Missionaries in Africa, not such a good thing.
Sure.
So I had read, if you haven't read it, this is one recommendation, Barbara Kingsolver's The Poisonwood Bible, which talks about, the uprising in the Belgian Congo. And
really?
And I actually never learned any African history in school, unfortunately, so this is not something I know that well. But so, having read this novel, knew something about the Belgian Congo and was like, oh yeah, the Belgian were, like, really evil bastards. As was everybody in Africa. So like, watching them all die seemed like
fun.
Good
times. And it's about time the Germans got a break.
For
being
absolutely.
demonized.
Let's go after the Belgians now.
Sure, I think, hey, the Dutch, I'm coming for you guys.
Yeah.
Like, historically...
Easy targets.
Absolutely.
And so, that part was fun. But then, I was glad that they had the peaceful resolution between Tarzan and the chief, whose son he accidentally killed. I guess it wasn't really an accident.
No, but understandable.
Yeah.
Because he killed his ape mom.
Yeah. But...
Which, that was another surprisingly emotional... Maybe I just have a soft spot for, like, parent-child deaths or whatever. But where his ape mom died, I thought the CGI was... It must have been good enough for me to actually be sad. And then when the chief... the enemy chief was talking about, like, my son was just a boy. But again, I think that's just, Jimon Hunsu's acting ability. I don't think it has anything to do with it. Because it came out of nowhere. Like, the actual empathy for him, like, came out of nowhere for me. Where I was, like I said, emotionally checked out. And all of a sudden, I was sad for him.
When the, again, spoiler alert, when Jane's chief, the good guy chief, gets shot, I was like, oh, I didn't see that coming, and that was really sad. That part got me.
Sure.
Where he
seemed like a nice guy.
They ask him to kneel down, and he won't do it, and they just shoot him, and you're like, oh, well, good for him.
Yeah, smiling placidly, like, I will die with my dignity.
Yeah, so, I would say they don't they don't do a big disservice to me to the African characters. They try not to.
Sure. I want to say A for effort.
But it just isn't a story that needs to be told. Like, that's at the end of the day, I'm like...
From Tarzan's
you just
perspective.
didn't
right.
need to make this story. Like,
yeah. I would definitely go watch a film about the Belgian uprising. The Belgian Congo uprising.
Right.
I would love to see that. Like, a genuine recounting of that. But to try to deliver it through this lens of Tarzan, just to me, of like what was basically a dime novel adventure story.
Yeah.
I feel like it almost dishonors the actual people who went through it.
Right. So the Poisonwood Bible is the opposite story. They're a missionary family. They've gone over to Africa, to convert the heathens or whatnot.
Sure.
And the father in the story is so utterly misguided. And just, leads his family into ruin because he understands so little about the world. He's very stuck in his ideas about how things should be, even though he's in Africa and none of those rules apply. Like, he basically just drives them to ruin because it is the opposite of a white savior story. He's like completely destroyed by the fact that he holds on to his rigid ideology in the face of, all evidence to the contrary and a totally different culture and way of life. Frequently people in the story try to help him and he just won't accept it. And so that book made me so mad I would have to put it down. Like, I'd read it and I get so angry at the father. I'm like, I gotta take a step back. Like, I don't know if I could see a movie about it.
And isn't that what her father would have been? They, like Jane's father in the movie, they sort of throw in a line about, he came to teach us English. Like, he was just a kindly guy who just wanted us to speak English, didn't have any ulterior motive, like converting us to Christianity or,
Yeah, no, I agree. They gloss over that as well. And too many people in the movie speak English. They, those people did because of Jane's father, but why does the chief? Like, when they have the big showdown with him and Tarzan, and they're all both speaking English, I'm like, that's not really making any sense. Like, how do they speak English?
Like, they all just do.
Yeah.
Why not? All the Belgians do.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
Everybody does.
Yeah,
all the Belgians, like, they never speak French or Flemish or anything, and I'm like, why is this a thing? Yeah. So, good job. Cultural sensitivity.
So I also felt like, just again from a movie point of view, I felt like including Christoph Waltz was a bad choice because I feel like he actually cast the rest of the movie in sharper relief as to how bad it was. It's almost like he was too good and all of his parts were too good and he would take these terrible lines and deliver them well and it gave them more like weight in such a way that it actually like...
Can we call this the Kate Winslet effect?
Okay, absolutely.
For Titanic, for being the only person in the entire movie who didn't phone it in.
Sure, absolutely. It made it awkward because there were points when I was rooting for Leon Rum.
Yeah, I agree.
Or at least like you felt like he had all this humanity when he was just supposed to be an empty villain. Like that's the whole point. In a movie like this, I don't want a villain with like complexity. I just want, like, the evil guy with the handlebar mustache tying the damsel to the railroad tracks.
Right. Which was absolutely what was written. Like, the writing was terrible. He wasn't a particularly good villain, but I'm with you. Like, Christoph Waltz is, like, just not capable of giving that kind of performance. Like, he's going to be good no matter what. Like,
exactly.
I agree.
So it made the rest of the movie, like, it put the whole, it was like it tilted the movie off of its axis so that it was hard for him to come back to, like, other scenes where you're supposed to hate him again.
Yeah, and just, again, tonally, like, Samuel L. Jackson was the comic relief in a movie that it wasn't clear why you needed comic relief. Like, just tonally, and then you had sort of Alexander Skarsgård being really brooding. He doesn't do brooding well.
So brooding.
Very brooding. He's not an actor you would pick for brooding. No. I don't know him from too many things. I saw a couple seasons of True Blood. He does kind of oily and charming very well. So I'm like, brooding is not his thing. Standing around not talking is admittedly actually quite difficult for an actor to pull off. Like, and then you have Jane alternately trying to be sort of the feisty, but not really.
I know.
No one knew who they were. Everybody was acting in a different movie.
They were. I actually did hear that criticism that David Yates didn't direct the actors enough. Like, he didn't say, okay, you guys, it's, 1885. Pretend like you're someone who lives in 1885. Like, he didn't even do that, apparently. So, poor Margot Robbie, who was great, was acting like a 2016 woman, just in a, old, outdated clothes.
Right. The clothes were nice. I meant to say the clothes were nice.
Yeah.
I meant to say good things about this movie to make it credible that I actually saw it.
Sure, yeah.
Costume. I have no complaint about the costumes.
The landscapes, I thought, were beautiful.
But
that's all we have.
I know, but I mean, even the landscapes and cinematography was so crappy.
Sure.
I'm sure
hard to appreciate. Rip was a nice guy.
Yeah.
I'm coming up short on.
Yeah, good things to say.
Sure. Not a mean-spirited movie. That was nice. There was nothing hateful about it.
No, I mean, it did try,
sure.
But then the point of it is, if you knew enough to try, then you knew enough to just not make the movie full stop. There was no need for this continuing Tarzan adventure. It does prove one important theory, though.
What's that?
I'll say this now. Many of you may know this as listeners. Every man becomes immediately 50% more attractive when he holds a baby. And I'm not a baby person. I do not like babies. I do not have a baby. But, you put a baby in a man's arm and you're like, oh, he looks better.
It's the same effect as an accent, right?
Yeah. It's not the only thing that can change someone's looks, but, every guy 50% more attractive when holding a baby.
So did you feel that way at the end?
Yeah, I was like, oh, he is kind of cute. He's holding a baby. He looks more attractive holding a baby.
Critics did not like the movie so much.
No.
Audiences did, kind of.
Did they?
They're going to see it. They're buying the tickets.
I'm shocked. It was so boring.
I was surprised as well. At least to get through, it just takes forever to get started. It takes itself so seriously in the beginning. And then all of a sudden it's action romp. But then it's, serious again, but in a silly way. Oh,
you never care about the characters.
No, I really didn't.
And going back to Tarzan's origin story, who doesn't know Tarzan's origin story?
Really?
Is this a sequel or is it not? Make up your mind.
Sure. Did you get the feeling that they were going to try to make another one? They were trying to leave the door open for
yes,
another one.
And hopefully that door's now closed.
Yes.
Yeah, I will say this for having just seen Independence Day, this was just boring. I was just full on board. I wanted to leave. I thought Independence Day was pretty crappy, but I wasn't bored.
Mm-hmm. So, how much impact? Scale of 1 to 10?
If people are seeing it, that makes me revise my feeling.
Really? Well, okay, so let's say a lot of people see it. How do you think they'll come away? The general sort of mainstream audience member.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, I was going to say no impact, but I guess if you're somebody who has never thought about colonialism, maybe this is kind of a colonialism for dummies.
There was a lot of positive portrayal of Africans and of Africa, so I feel the cultural elements were there that could maybe open someone's eyes about wanting to visit, or
sure,
the evils of colonialism, slavery. I think people know is bad. And if you don't, this isn't going to change your mind.
Mm-hmm. And there was, I guess, one role that Samuel L. Jackson's character did play was he tried to draw in United States culpability. So, in a movie made in the States, really skewering Europe and indirectly England, he was there to kind of go, we did terrible things too, we're not saying that we're, better than you.
Yeah.
So it was, even though that was clunkily done, or basically he just starts talking about it for no reason. over the campfire or whatever. He's like, one time I slaughtered a bunch of Native Americans. You know, it's like, oh, wow, okay. Thanks for letting us know. But like, I presume that's why he was there, was to kind of, you know, draw that in as well. But so maybe
a 2.
okay, sure. Well, with that, I don't know. You may have you've brought me around as far as like that goes. I might say 3.
Ooh,
it was as high as 3.
Whopping. Well, we have some announcements.
Do we? Great.
Yes, we do. We are now live on iTunes and Stitcher. Yes. Find us there. Are we on Google Play? I haven't checked.
I am not tech savvy enough to understand.
So we are on iTunes. We are on Google Play. We are on www.moviesthatmatterpodcast.com.
Check it out.
Can just download all the episodes from our website if you want. You can leave comments, which we would love to have. We would love for some ratings on iTunes.
Yes, absolutely.
Spread the word.
If you can, on any of these platforms, if you can subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review.
Tweet us. Our Twitter accounts are up on our website now as well.
That's right. And I guess if you do try to use the hashtag, what should our hashtag be?
Movies That Matter?
No. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Hashtag Movies That Matter.
Yeah.
And we'll check that occasionally and, and write back to you.
Yeah. So we look forward to hearing from you.
Especially if you disagree with us.
Yeah. Tell us why Tarzan is an amazing movie. We won't believe you, but go ahead and try.
We'd love to hear it. Yeah. Recommendations? Do you want to add on top of Poisonwood Bible?
I do. Yeah. So, again, in my Wayback Machine. If you must. If you feel this burning desire for a white savior story, you absolutely have to have one.
Okay.
I'm going to recommend a bookend movie. I saw the movie first, The Power of One. It's also a book written by Bryce Courtenay. The book and the movie are actually different enough that you get different things out of them. It's
Power of One, what's it about?
So it was made in the 90s. It stars Steven Dorff, features Armin Mueller-Stahl, who was like everybody's favorite German actor before Christoph Waltz came along. So, and Morgan Freeman as well. And a very emotional attachment that you have to a chicken. No lie.
Wow.
So it's set in South Africa. And it's about the English population in South Africa during the Boer War. So the English then become somewhat of the persecuted against the Afrikaans, the Dutch natives to South Africa, and the beginning of apartheid and what that all means. And so it is a white savior story, and it absolutely takes on the myth of the white savior in it, and wrestles with what that means and if it's appropriate, which is one of the good pieces about the film is that it doesn't just accept that there needs to be a white savior that's called into question. And the book is enormous fun to read. The movie it was one of my favorite movies. Absolutely beautiful soundtrack by South African chorus. So
wow,
worth checking out.
Sure, sounds great. I thought I would recommend a what I feel is a much far superior retelling of, I would say, call it an adaptation of the Tarzan novels.
Okay.
George of the Jungle. Starring Brendan Fraser and I can't remember her name.
Oh, she's
Judd
Judd
Apatow's
Apatow's wife.
Right, who's delightful. She's delightful.
Take a step back for feminism, right?
Yeah,
we can't remember her name.
Yes, that is my fault. But that movie, I feel like, is delightful. It takes itself not at all seriously, which is exactly how a story like this, is appropriately told. It's fun. It's endearing. And even to this day, I think it's funny. So I would say, instead of going to see Legend of Tarzan, just go, DVD, rent the DVD for George of the Jungle.
And if you want to make your heart melt just a tiny bit more, I heard an interview with Brendan Fraser
recently,
was a few years ago, but, you know, they were talking about, you know, sort of his body of work, and they were poking fun at George of the Jungle. You know, he made Gods and Monsters, and you know,
Crash.
He's made very serious films, and they were like, and then he made George of the Jungle, and he said, you know, to the interviewers, like, you say that, but you want to talk about impact and fandom. For years after that movie came out, some little toddler would see me on the street and come dashing over and grab my legs. Like, he's like, adorable. Making George of the Jungle was more rewarding than any movie I've ever made.
That does melt my heart.
Kids just loved me.
Oh man, no one does that for what was it, Gods and Monsters?
Yeah, exactly.
No one's gonna be like, oh, I love doing Gods and Monsters, give me a hug.
Exactly. So I just thought, way to like turn it around on a very, you know, sort of film critic-y, snobby comment, and just be like, no, I loved making George of the Jungle.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Movies That Matter. If you did, like I said, please leave a second to leave a review on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play. And recommend it to your friends. That would be great. You can follow me at Snow White Pitch Black.
You can follow me at Funarini.
Awesome.
Yes.
Great. Or just go to our website.
Go to our website.
And our brand spanking new website.
Moviesthatmatterpodcast.com.
Exactly. And remember, movies matter.
And so do you.
We'll see you next time.